Hi there, my name is Tommaso. I run the Word Anvil Publishing, and the purpose of this video is to give you a general overview of Broken Tales and the Monad ecosystem. So the very first thing that we're gonna look at is what is the theme of Broken Tales. It all starts with a child, the child savior, whose wish has been granted by the fairy tale king. We don't know yet what the child savior has done to get his wish, but this is something that you will find out in the Broken Tales core book. So what is the wish of the child savior? He is asking the fairy tale king for the villains to be given a second chance. Unfortunately, to keep things in balance, if the villains become good, something has got to give. The good characters become horribly twisted, and we call them the broken ones. Broken Tales is set in a dark fictional Europe of the 18th century. We say fictional because some things are based on real facts, some things are based on real places, but you shouldn't expect historical accuracy just because it's cooler that way. The fairy tales we know have been broken, and the broken ones live at the edges of society. They're always lingering there, always terrorizing common villagers and aristocracy alike. The hunters are the protagonists of Broken Tales. They are new incarnations. We have completely rewritten them compared to their original counterparts. Of the villains you know, for example, you might have seen from the quick start, there's James the Swordman. He's based on Captain Hook. They belong to the Order, and the Order is a secret institution controlled by the papacy with the specific goal to investigate supernatural situations. In one sentence, it's a bit like Suicide Squad with villains from various fairy tales. We think Broken Tales is great to bring new people to the table. It is designed with one-shots in mind, or anyway, very short campaigns, let's say a couple of sessions. There's this iconic list of cast of characters. They are beautifully illustrated by Daniel Comerci, and they're ready to play. You don't need to do anything. Everything you need is on the hunter sheets. Each one of them comes with a detailed background and custom powers. The stories that you can make, that you can create with Broken Tales, that you can play with Broken Tales, are based on classic fairy tales. Be aware, these are not the Disney versions of those fairy tales. These are the original fairy tales. Usually they are much more brutal than the Disney versions that have been purged from the most gruesome stuff. In this way, when we give you the characters, the hunters, and these new scenarios that have been based on original fairy tales but completely rewritten, a storyteller has everything they need to start the game real quick. You don't need much preparation at all to play a game of Broken Tales. All the rules that players need are either on their hunter sheet or on a reference sheet that will be in the center of the table. And the stories that we will include in the core book and in the broken ones are written for emergent gameplay. What does it mean? There will be a situation, there will be locations, there will be characters and NPCs, but the way things will go are often not fixed. If you need more guidance, and if you would prefer the game to be divided in scenes in a more traditional way, we will also explain how to use those scenarios with a bit more railroading. Okay, so you might be asking, what about campaigns and custom characters? Of course you can do them. The core book will also offer rules and suggestions on how you can build longer campaigns and how to connect the existing scenarios between them. You can always make your own. We'll tell you how to bring both characters and stories to their breaking point, that's what we call it, which is the secret Broken Tales ingredient if you want. So you can both create custom hunters and custom scenarios based on whatever fairy tale you have in mind. In short, you can take a villain or a story that you like, write it down, pick a few keywords from the description that you wrote down, and each time decide if that is a keyword that you can somehow twist in the Broken Tales way, or if that is an element that will stay very close to the original. If you want to know what we mean exactly, take a look at the Red Hood Hisscraft scenario in the Quick Start. The system used by Broken Tales is called Monad Echo. It has been used in our previous games, Evolution Pulse Rebirth. You can find the Quick Start on Drive-Thru RPG, and Valeraven Le Cronache del Sangue del Ferro. This exists only in Italian for now. It's a system that focuses on narration and is trying to reduce the number of interruptions of each scene to the bare minimum, so that the narration can flow smoothly. Of course, you can roll dice and also spend resources, as we will see, but we want to make sure that everything is coming and going back to the narration. What do we mean with that? Let's start with the main building blocks for characters. These are the descriptors. A descriptor tells us who this character is, what they can do, and what are their weaknesses. When you bring a descriptor into the game, you will be able to mark experience points. They also are useful to determine the difficulty ratings for your specific character. For example, if your character is somewhat a chemist, you might not even have to do any check at all to understand a chemical compound. Then the second important things about characters are the gifts. These are basically powers and special abilities. In Broken Tales, one of them it's called the Dark Ego. It is the power that ties a hunter to its original essence, meaning what it was before being reborn in this new form. What you remember mostly about the character from the original story, pretty much. I'll give you an example. Baba Yaga. In Broken Tales, she's a child, and people don't take her very seriously. Her dark ego power is called the Evil Witch, which allows her to manifest her powers in full. If she uses it to punish someone who broke a pact with her, like in the original stories, if you know in the original stories, Baba Yaga is an old woman, old hag, I should say. So if she uses the Dark Ego to punish someone who broke a pact with her, this gift will be even more powerful. So something of her original character will survive in this new incarnation. And equipment also becomes, in Monad Echo, also becomes a narrative device. The question equipment answer is just this. What narrative options can this tool open to this character right now? Equipments do not give you, like in many other games, bonuses and maluses. We did not want to play that game, so everything your character has with them opens up new narrative options. They can do certain things if they have the right tool. They cannot do certain things if they don't have the right tool. Okay? Soma. Soma is a very peculiar element of the Monad Echo. It is an expendable resource, it is a pull point. It represents the energy or the determination of the character in doing something. You can spend it to get extra successes. We will see that you will need to reach a certain amount of successes for your action to have the right outcome. It is, as I said, a limited resource. You have to use it very carefully during the session because regenerating it takes time. And it can also be used to activate some of the gifts. Some gifts will require you to invest Soma points. Then there are position and defense checks. In the quick start, we call them roll. It is a misnomer slightly because you might not have to roll anything, and I will explain you why. So, first of all, you do a position roll, position check, if an action doesn't have an obvious outcome. If it is obvious, you don't have to roll anything. But if there is the doubt that this thing might not happen, then you might have to do a position roll. The storyteller never rolls in this game. It never rolls in any game that use Monad Echo. When a danger, it means a dangerous situation, or a generic danger, or an NPC acts, the hunter will do instead a defense roll. These two rolls are quite similar. We will see what is the difference. So a position roll is to see what's the new narrative position of the character in the scene, going from one place to the other. Can my character move through the trench or not? It will change the narrative positioning of the character. A defense roll instead, it's done when the character wants to avoid external elements that are pushing them in a new, worse narrative position. When something happens that can put them in danger or in a tight spot, that's when you do a defense roll. We need to speak now about opposition level. The opposition level is divided in 3 different tiers. There's easy, 3, medium, 5, and hard, 7. To reach the minimum positive outcome of a check, your character needs at least as many successes as the opposition level. So if the opposition level is medium, 5, you need 5 successes to reach the minimum positive outcome. That's what we call the outcome with a cost. We will see what are the other 2 later on. Each hunter has 3 descriptors, as we said in the beginning. They define what you're good at and what you're bad at. When you need to do a check, if any of the 3 is relevant to the current situation, you immediately score 3 successes. Okay? So if an opposition level would be easy, 3, and you have a relevant descriptor, you would already reach the outcome with a cost. If none of your descriptors is relevant, then you only score 1 success. Your goal to pass a check is to at least reach this opposition level given by the storyteller, but you can go over, and we will see why. One thing that is important to notice is that NPCs also have descriptors, and if they apply to the current situation, the opposition level that you need to reach might be raised or lowered by 1. I'll give you an example. So if there's a giant and he has this descriptor, I'm a mighty and armored giant, slow but relentless. If the action that you are describing is somewhat swift, the opposition level is lowered by 1 because he is slow, right? Instead, if you try to attack him directly without a proper weapon because he's armored and mighty, then the opposition level might go up by 1. This is decided by the narrator according to the specific situation. Okay, so we established that you do get 3 base successes if any of your descriptor is relevant and 1 if none is applicable. How do you get more successes to reach the position level? So one way is to use Soma. For every Soma point that you expend, you will get an automatic success. If you don't have Soma to spend, or you don't want to spend it because you don't have much left, you can roll 6-sided dice, and how many depends on your risk tolerance. Any result rolled by these dice that is between 2 and 6 is considered a success. So if you roll 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, that's a success. But if you roll even a single 1 on the dice, the whole action fails. The risk here is that you roll more dice than is wise to roll, trying to get a better amount of successes, and at least one comes out, I must say. So how many successes do you need actually to pass a check? If you reach the same amount as the opposition level, you get the outcome with a cost. It means your action is successful, but something happens that is somewhat not an advantage for you. You might do things slower, you might lose an object on the way, things like that. If you pass the opposition level by 1 success, that's a standard outcome. The action happens exactly as you described it. But if you pass it by 2, then you get an outcome with increment. It gives you, like, the action succeeds like you described it, and you also get something extra. It can be an advantage, it might take less time, or you can inflict more damage, things like that. Some of the gifts also allow you to use special increments that are specified in the gift, and you can spend that increment to activate a special effect. We're almost done. There's no initiative in this game. The combat follows the narration. We call this system exchange. Each participant can act once before the round starts over, and it always alternates between one faction and the other. For example, playing characters on one side and enemies on the other. Damage is represented by wounds. They can be either physical or psychological in nature, and they always need to be described to see if in the following action they can influence the narrative position of a character. For example, if you have a bleeding shoulder, it will definitely make you easier to track if somebody will try to track you. Or if you're confused or stunned, you might be easier to hit. So that's why you always write what is the wound that you received. And the last thing that is worth mentioning is that most enemies die with when you inflict just 1 wound. But of course the most important ones might have 3 or even 6 wounds. And this is it, guys. This is like a brief overview of the whole system, and I hope it's clear enough. And if you have questions, please reach out and we'll try to answer on Discord or here in the Kickstarter comments, or wherever you see this video. We will try to be more clear if something is not clear. Thank you for following.